Well, good morning, everyone. We are back and ready to go. NFL Fantasy Matchup Week 15, playoff time for some of us. There are some of us who are out of certain leagues. There are some of us who are really into leagues. Well, good morning, Jed, Jim. How are you?
Good
Good.
morning.
Yeah. I miss trying to add waiver wire pickups on all my leagues, and I'm down to 4 out of the 8 leagues that I'm in.
8 leagues. That's
Yeah.
insane.
This is the most I've been in.
That's crazy.
Well, literally, I think a lot of times with 8 leagues I'm in 3 basketball leagues, that's 11 leagues. I can't do that next year because I am not monitoring a lot of those. And even last week for basketball, there was this one guy I wanted to play against someone in Japan, and I have a better team than him, but I didn't play 5 of my players, and so I completely
That's the ESPN league, right?
the ESPN league.
See, that's the hard part about the ESPN league. At least with Yahoo, you can set the players so that it'll start every active player. With ESPN, you have to manually do it, which is annoying because sometimes you're just not paying attention to it.
No,
Yes.
I hate ESPN. That's actually some leagues I've told them I'll refuse to play if we keep using ESPN. Yahoo is far superior for fantasy sports.
No, you're right, because it is so hard to manage the ESPN. And sometimes I was like, I don't even know what's going on, So,
Yeah. But the problem is Yahoo doesn't go into places like Japan. And so we're in a league with some guys from Japan and they can only use ESPN, but they really want to play. So it's a fine, I'll do it. But you can't press like one button and start everyone.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing I like about Yahoo, and you'll see it with fantasy football this week. Guys like a Driscoll from Houston or Taysom Hill, they are listed as both a quarterback and a tight end on Yahoo. But then if you go to ESPN, they're only listed either as a tight end or quarterback, right? And so, for instance, I'm taking a risk this week, and I picked up Driscoll from Houston because he's the part-time quarterback. And I'm like, hey, look, if he can put up some quarterback numbers as a tight end, I've done pretty well entering the playoffs. But do I want to risk something like that this week?
Yeah. Hey, yesterday, did anyone of you guys watch the game? Kyle Shanahan says this: Brock Purdy is the most poised rookie I've ever coached. How do you guys like a Brock Purdy?
I'm impressed. I mean, 3 wins after Jimmy G. Some people even saying like, "Oh, this makes Jimmy G expendable," which is crazy to me. But yeah, he has looked very poised. I've got George Kittle. Kittle had 2 touchdowns yesterday, passing touchdowns. So man, I'm happy, and I've got Ayuk too. So I'm hoping that Purdy can continue it. But you've got to be pretty impressed. And if you're quarterback, hungry, if you needed Kyler Murray went down, you need someone. I mean, Purdy's someone you should definitely think about.
Yeah. I mean, San Francisco next year has to decide between Trey Lance, Jimmy G, and a Purdy, right? And rumors, and this is just rumors, are out there that Tom Brady might be entertaining a thought to go to San Francisco to win a championship as well, too. So, I mean, here's my thing. If I were them, and let's say Purdy brings them to the Super Bowl, you stick with Purdy. And you can get rid of the Trey Lances and the Jimmy Gs of the world.
Yeah. My one kind of sneaky pick out there, if you are needing a quarterback, I'm starting Desmond Ridder for the Atlanta Falcons team because I think there's a real good shot. If you guys don't know, he actually is a kind of dual threat. So he's a running quarterback as well as passing, and they're going to give him the full chance here to show what he can do. And so I took a flyer on him on the team I lost, Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm. On the side note, especially with George Kittle, a lot of times he did not do well with Trey Lance. Did okay with Jimmy G, but at the same time, he's been asked to come in and block a little bit more. But ever since Purdy started, you've seen George Kittle do well for the last couple of weeks, especially yesterday. 2 touchdowns. He did very, very well yesterday.
Yeah, he probably helped a lot of people into the playoffs just from yesterday. We'll see.
Yep. By the way, one note, Tyler Lockett suffers broken finger, may miss the rest of the season. Yesterday, I was very interested because I actually had 2 players. I have 1 IDP player in the safety, in the quarterback over in San Francisco. I actually also had the kicker for Seattle as well too. But on the other hand, that particular individual had DJ Metcalf. So I was intensely watching the game. I was playing our friend Arnold, Jim, in our league, and he had Metcalf playing against me.
So who's expected to win? I haven't looked at that. Who's expected to win, you or Arnold?
Me, I'm expected to win against Arnold because he currently has Russell Wilson as his starting quarterback. And so I actually want Russell Wilson to play because he is terrible, and our friend Arnold is the one playing Russell Wilson. So I really would love for him to play for Russell Wilson to play.
Jed, Tommy's really happy because he's poised to potentially win this league championship again, and he snuck in. I mean, literally, he and I flip-flop because I was about to get into the playoffs, but I think I forgot why, but I ended up losing. I lost the playoff spot. He got the playoff spot, and now he may end up winning the championship. And he's got momentum behind him.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm playing not Arnold, our friend Steve. So our friend Steve got like first place in his division. But here, Jed, here's who he has right now: Russell Wilson, Amari Cooper, Tyler Higbee, George Pickens, DJ Metcalf, and Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, that's a bad team.
Yeah, that's not a very good team. He should definitely swap out Russell Wilson. He could keep Kamara in there, and Pickens isn't too bad, but and Cooper could be okay. But he should swap out the quarterback.
No, we're not telling him that. Keep playing Russell
I hope
Wilson.
you're listening. Hope you're listening, Steve.
No, he subscribes to this podcast. Whether
don't play Russell Wilson, man. You gotta swing for the fences. So you want to swing for someone who's an unknown. So again, someone like a Ryder, someone like a Purdy. Take a shot at that.
By the way, speaking of Atlanta, did you hear that Mariota walked out of practice?
Yeah, after you heard.
You know what? He was pretty bad. All right. I mean, so Mariota, I have no idea why you're walking on practice because you were terrible. You're just the second pick in the NFL draft. You're just terrible. Yeah. With that said, now at the same time, if our friend Steve did not play Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers is on his bench. Would you play Aaron Rodgers?
I actually would play Aaron Rodgers before Russell Wilson, right? Yeah, because at least you know that he's got Watson, he's got something to play for. Wilson's out, I would take the risk on the Rodgers.
Yeah, no, that's a very good. If he's got him sitting on his bench, like that's not going to do him any good. They're playing, and it's a Monday night game, and they're playing the Rams. I mean, that's a little bit of but the Rams defense isn't as good as it's been, but it's in Green Bay too. I would play Rodgers there. I agree. That's a good play.
Christian Watson. I am so looking forward to seeing how Christian Watson does. I will be sitting there watching Monday Night Football this week.
Tom, you guys keep on going. I'm gonna step out for 1 minute.
Okay, got it. Hey, Jed, Kyle Shanahan. A lot of times first, Kyle Shanahan. We expect Deebo Samuel to return in 3 weeks. I am so glad in one of my leagues I traded away Kyle Shanahan. Now, I traded him for Christian Kirk. I was a little frustrated, but at the same time, I have Christian Kirk and Deebo Samuel's out for the next couple of weeks during the playoff season.
Yeah, you know what? I hope we do the look back because if you remember at the beginning of the season, I know for sure I said, do not expect Deebo Samuel to have the season he had last year. He's being drafted too high. Be very careful with him. And so last year, I think I read at this point in the season, he had 1,200 yards. He's sitting around 700 to 800. So that's a huge drop. And it's interesting how San Francisco, because remember, there's a whole discussion of is San Francisco going to keep running him or use him more as a wide receiver. They kept running him and they paid the price because of the injury. And so I think that's the risk you take with Deebo. He's a great player, but with all the pounding he gets as a running back, it's just too dangerous. And so we called that as one of the trends.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times someone like a Deebo Samuel doesn't want to be just wide receiver because you actually get paid more as a wide receiver. Now, was he better as a dual threat? He was very, very good. And so a lot of times you're trying to work through some of those things.
Well, actually, that's why I was saying, if you remember, we talked about his contract, though. If you looked at his contract, it looked like he was trying to force them to not run him as much and to use him more as a wide receiver because there was all these incentives built into them running with him running. So I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, the fact that he's injured, I mean, that's exactly what we were warning you about.
Yeah. For you guys, do you know who was named NFC Offensive Player of the Week last week?
Jalen Hurts.
Jed?
No, I don't. Yeah, maybe. No, it's got to be so. I was going to say Pollard, but I don't remember how well he did. I don't know who.
Baker Mayfield named NFC.
Baker Mayfield.
I did hear.
Mayfield, really?
If he starts, he's going to be the first quarterback to start for 3 different teams in one season.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, would you even play him against Green Bay? If you're desperate for a quarterback, are you playing him?
That's an interesting one. But the only reason I'm going to say no is because it's in Green Bay and
Yeah.
it's going to be cold. And I just, I know he played in Cleveland, so maybe he's used to that. But that's a tough environment, man. I think I would, like we said, Rodgers is another option. We talked about Ryder. Yeah, I think I'd look elsewhere.
No, I mean, here's my thing. If you had to choose between a Purdy and a Mayfield, I'll choose the Purdy before Mayfield.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson. We have a lot of quarterback updates because there's a lot of news regarding quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson is out this week. Tyler Huntley, we don't know if he's playing or not. J.K. Dobbins, is he someone that you're definitely starting no matter what?
Oh yeah, I mean he had close to 160 yards of rushing last week. They're going to need even if Huntley is playing, he's nowhere near Lamar Jackson, right? So they're going to need a J.K. Dobbins out there. And to be honest, I want him to play because I got him in my Walter White league that I picked up on waivers, and I need him to do well. So yes, I do think Dobbins is going to do good.
No, he is going to do well, and that's a start. I mean, he's a starter. They're playing against Cleveland. It's in Cleveland. That's not a bad matchup to look. I was thinking of all the backup quarterbacks because there's also Arizona is playing Denver. So that's another backup quarterback situation. You've got Atlanta now, the backup quarterback situation. So there's a lot of options out there, to take a chance on, especially if you need help at the QB spot.
I mean, for you
guys, go ahead, Jim.
For you guys, like you were saying this, do you want to risk this week entering into the playoffs? Are you willing to play players like a J.K. Dobbins, or will you go with like your the consistent players that've been with you all season?
No, I'm taking risks for me. Like to me, if you want to win, you got to get points. So you can't get if the guy averages 10 points a week, that's not what you want. Like you want the guy who potentially can get you 20. So you got to swing for the fences.
All right. So with that said, let me ask you guys a quick question. So I have someone like a J.K. Dobbins sitting there or Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams, slow and steady. Is he going to get you 14 points? Maybe. Is he going to get you 2 points? Probably like last week. He got me 3 points. J.K. Dobbins is also risk. Sitting on my bench, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, and Rachaad White. Would you play any of those guys ahead of Jamal Williams or J.K. Dobbins?
No, you're always going to play a running back over wide receiver just because of the touches. So, I mean, unless the running back's like the second string. So no, it's definitely either Dobbins or Williams. But I would argue that Williams to me is not, I don't think he's like average. Like he has a potential to really explode. So and Detroit's playing the Jets in New York. I'm telling you, the Baltimore-Cleveland game, in division games at the end of year for that division are brutal. They are like beating each other up, and the defenses know each other so well. It could be a low-scoring game. So I would actually play Williams in that situation.
Yeah. Rachaad White, what do you think of him as well, too? They're playing against Cincinnati. Last week, I mean, Tampa Bay was terrible against San Francisco, but 2 weeks ago, they did pretty well. If you have Chris Godwin sitting there, Rachaad White, what do you think is the likelihood that these guys will do well this week?
Remind me who they're playing for Tampa this week?
Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, here's my thing. They're going to need some offense. My only hesitation in terms of playing a White is Leonard Fournette is still a dual running back, right? And right now, my guess is if they're going to be in the red zone, they're going to go for Fournette, even though White's going to get a majority of the carries, but carries will only get you so far. You're going to need touchdowns. And so that's my hesitation in playing a White.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tampa's going to be behind. They're going to have to catch up. They're going to be throwing the ball. So you might look at a Chris Godwin because I do think they're going to have to come from behind. But, man, Brady has been not good except for the last 5 minutes of games. Other than that, he's been pretty bad.
Yeah.
Darren Waller is on a lot of times just coming back from injury. He's been terrible this year, but he's sitting there on a lot of waivers. Are you starting him over a Cole Kmet or like Noah Fant yesterday caught a touchdown? A lot of times, how high are you in terms of picking up Darren Waller and starting him?
So this is the risk that I'm going to take, or the gamble I'm going to make in the Walter White league. I have Darren Waller and I have a Driscoll that's sitting on my bench, right? I'm going to play Driscoll before a Darren Waller because both of them are expected to score somewhere between 5 to 6 points. I'm going to bank on the fact that Driscoll is also going to play a majority of the snaps as quarterback versus tight end. I think this will either take me out of the playoffs or propel me to a victory so I can play against you, Jed.
Yeah, and I'm sad you're doing that because I think Waller is going to do well. Like
You
I
think?
would definitely play Waller, and I would disagree, Tommy, with your assessment that he had a bad year. If you look at his first 4 games, he was doing pretty well. It was only when he got the injury. So I actually think Waller is going to. I've been waiting for him to come back, and that's the guy that I'm throwing in there, and I would play him over a Noah Fant. I would play him over a Driscoll. But you got to do what you got to do, Jimmy. We'll
I
see.
know, right?
I'm just waiting for you.
I'm trying to figure out. I was like, do I listen to Jet? You're like, either way. I mean, it's either win or you lose and you're out, right? So you're gonna have to pick something, and that's the risk about figuring out which player to play for some of these games.
All right, guys, let me ask you, Jed, going to you then. Cole Kmet, who has done pretty well under Justin Fields, or Darren Waller?
Oh no, I would play. So I was going to say, if you have a solid like top 10 guy, then I would play him over Darren Waller. If you have a solid tie, and I would put Cole Kmet in that category. Like I think Kmet is a top 10 tight end, so I would play him.
Yep. Another quarterback who is starting this week. If you need a quarterback, Mike White over the Jets. I like a Mike White a lot.
Yeah, and they're playing Detroit. So again, just think of all the high-scoring games that Detroit has been, and it's in New York. So totally agree. I just don't think Mike White is sitting on. I don't know if he's sitting on a lot of waivers, but Mike White, you should get in there if you can.
Jim, Zach Wilson. I definitely believe I'm still the Jets' future.
No, he's not the Jets' future. I think he's pretty much lost the team. I think Mike White or whoever is going to end up being the starters, and that's another waste, right? It comes on the heels of Sam Darnold, and it's another wasted pick for the Jets. I think they should just stop. I mean, but think about it. Think about who else they got. They got Hall. They got Sauce Gardner. They got Garrett Wilson. So outside of Zach Wilson, they've actually done pretty well drafting position players.
Yeah. Jay, you know who Zach Wilson reminds me of?
Cade McNown.
Cade McNown. That's who he reminds me of, Cade McNown, who was just coming in, who was supposed to be the stud quarterback, but was just terrible because he was just too cocky. And I think a lot of times with Zach Wilson, he's just so cocky, but doesn't prepare very well. Yeah. Okay. Are you guys back? All right. Perfect. Yeah. Also, as a result, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is out for the season. Tore ACL as well too. What are your? Jen, I'm going to ask you. What do you think of DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner? What about Marquise Brown?
I still like. Oh, I was. By the way, just talking about trends. We also talked about Hopkins and how we said do not draft Hopkins. Wait until the suspension is over and then start him right away. We said, don't worry about waiting. And that has proven true. Hopkins, from the time he got back from the suspension, has been, I think, the number 6 wide receiver overall. So he has been very good. And he started right away from the get-go. So no, I'm playing Hopkins. I don't know about going much deeper than that. Again, because with the backup, and I'm forgetting who the backup is there. So I think that's a consideration. Yeah, Colt McCoy. Colt okay, the former Texas Longhorn. But Kyler Murray, you guys know I have him in my keeper league, and I'm keeping him. I mean,
you're going to keep Kyler Murray for next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's between Kyler Murray and remember I was telling you guys between him and Khalil Herbert. So
okay, I'll keep it Herbert. Yeah,
Jim, Philadelphia against Chicago Bears. How bad would the Chicago Bears defense give to Jalen Hurts?
I think they're going to score a lot of points. I mean, I think here's my thing. I think the momentum is in the Eagles. I think they are going to go in and try to solidify clinch that division title, and they're going to show why they're the number 1 team in the league. And to be honest, with all of the players out on defense for the Bears, I think they can score close to like 30, 40 points. And I think they're going to try to score 30, 40 points. Their line has been great. Miles Sanders has been great. A.J. Brown has been good. And I think Jalen Hurts is trying to become the MVP of the league.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of points going to be scored here. But I still would play my Bears. I still like Justin Fields going in here. I like Kmet going in here. Maybe even is it Montgomery that's playing, or who's not?
Yeah, Montgomery's playing. Yeah, but I think Herbert's coming back as well too, but Montgomery's the starter.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I think the Bears are gonna. I think they're gonna get beat, but I don't think they're gonna like be totally out of it. I think they're gonna score some points too.
Yeah. Here's I don't care if they get beat. Right now there's slated to get the number 2 or number 3 round pick. The higher the better, And for me, if you can trade that and get a couple 2 or 3 other picks in the later first rounds, I'm all for it because they need some good players.
Side note, who has a great draft pick? Seattle has Denver's pick, and so Denver keeps losing. Seattle gets that pick.
Oh, Seattle, and I think Detroit are in a good position to get some really good draft picks, even though they are doing pretty good. So they're just going to get stronger.
Detroit gets their pick, but they also get the LA Rams pick for Matthew Stafford. Jed, Chiefs versus Texans. Who's going to have a better game, Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes?
Well, if Mahomes has a good game, you expect Kelce to have a good game too. So, I mean, you're playing both of those. Houston has been interesting. I mean, they've put up a decent fight in the first half of a lot of games. But yeah, Kansas City needs to get on. They need to get rolling. I'm looking for my guy Pacheco here. I'm hoping that they get Pacheco going and we see some good numbers there. So that's one thing. And then do you guys know is the wide receiver back? Is Mecole Hardman back?
I don't know. That one I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on Mecole Hardman coming off of IL. That's one guy I've been hoping, to pick up before the playoffs.
And honestly, Jed, don't be surprised when Jerick McKinnon comes back as well too and continues to have another good game.
Yeah, he had a great game last week, and I will say that, that's obviously eating into Pacheco's carries. But if you're desperate for a running back, a lot of waivers, he's available, and he had 2 touchdowns, I think, last week. So,
yeah. Jim, Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Dallas Cowboys. Trevor Lawrence, is he on your radar as well too?
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is solidifying himself as maybe not the top tier quarterback, but at least that second tier, right? I do hope that this game they're going to get Christian Kirk going. I hope they get Travis Etienne going, but Trevor Lawrence has been great. I know that they held him out of practice, but I think it's just precautionary. But he's supposed to go hard against Dallas Cowboys.
Jed, going into next year, has Trevor Lawrence shown you enough where you're actually going to consider him as your starting quarterback for next year?
Yeah, not as a keeper, but definitely in drafting, he is definitely draftable, in the later rounds. But again, this season has proven out the strategy of waiting on a quarterback is really sound because look at Geno Smith. You could have drafted Geno Smith basically off of the waivers after the first week. He's going to probably end up in the top 10. I mean, that's amazing. So you can get really good value late in the game. And I think Trevor Lawrence is one of those too.
Trevor Lawrence definitely is above Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Is he past Dak Prescott yet?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think he's past Dak Prescott. I mean, if you look at the last few weeks, right, based off the last few weeks, he's averaged close to about 22 fantasy points. Dak Prescott during that time, the last 3-4 weeks, averaged close to 18 fantasy points with more weapons, I would say. Yeah, so I think he's surpassed Dak Prescott.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is just, you got to see with the whole coaching tree and if there's any changes there because – yeah, I think the offense in Jacksonville is a little suspect. Whereas I feel like in Dallas, there's more points to be had.
What if Dak Prescott next year gets Sean Payton as coach? I think that will elevate.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. If Sean Payton comes in there, I think that would be excellent.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Patriots against Oakland Raiders, right? I know on my other playoff teams, I am so hoping Josh Jacobs does not play and that they're just going to air it out over to Devontae Adams. But right now he's questionable as well too, but I'm hoping he doesn't play. In terms of this particular game, who is on your list? Is it Ramondre Stevenson or are you starting any other players or the wide receivers on New England?
I like Ramondre Stevenson. Jimmy looks frozen.
Yeah,
I like Ramondre Stevenson. There was another back. Who was the other back out of New England that had a decent game last week too?
Kevin Harris.
Yes, Kevin Harris. So again, if you guys, desperate, that might not be a bad one to look at. But what I'm hoping is New England puts the clamps on the running game. Josh Jacobs maybe doesn't play, and then Las Vegas airs it out to Devontae Adams and Darren Waller. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Hey, seriously, I really hope that a lot of times Josh Jacobs doesn't play because that will really allow me to propel into this particular league.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs is good. If you have him, definitely. If you got to pay attention to that. That guy can make or break your week.
Got it. A couple of people in terms I want to pick your brain on: Michael Gallup or David Montgomery.
Oh, well, I mean, just again, because of positions, I'd probably go with David Montgomery, expecting him to get more carries. But you get, the problem there is Philadelphia could go up big, and then Chicago's got to move away from the running game, and Montgomery's usually not the pass catching back. So that's a tough one. Actually, maybe I'd say Gallup, actually. I switched to Gallup because Dallas is playing Jacksonville, and there should be a lot of points there.
Okay, Gallup or Adam Thielen?
Thielen.
I say Gallup.
Yeah,
I was
going to say Gallup. Yeah, I think Gallup. Minnesota's Minnesota's probably going to kill him, but I still like Gallup there.
I do think this is Thielen's last year in Minnesota. That's why in some dynasty leagues, I've started looking at Osborne. I think Osborne's going to be your number 2 receiver. I think Thielen's going to end up going to Jordy Nelson and going to another team and not be fantasy relevant anymore.
Yep. Jim, Cam Akers, or are you looking at a T. Higgins?
Right now, Cam Akers, right? Because we're not entirely sure what's going to happen with T. Higgins. T. Higgins didn't play last week, ended up right before the game getting injured. And so they said he's still limited. He's going to be a game time decision. So I think if I were to choose right now, I'd go for Cam Akers.
Got it. Hey, by the way, a lot of times, Jed, a quick update on Miko Harmon. They did open the 21-day practice window from his abdomen injury, but they have not officially declared whether he's starting or not this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, pay attention to that. I mean, that could be a nice pickup in the playoffs.
Tom, going back though, for your league, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Jamar Chase is going to have a big game this week because both T. Higgins as well as Tyler.
Hey, look, I'm telling you, he's at this church and recording as well too. It's supposed to be 5G here, but he's not doing too well here.
Not paying their bills.
I'm trying to figure out why these internet is so slow today.
Yeah. Also, Jed, Saquon Barkley playing against the Washington Commanders. How well do you think Saquon Barkley would do this week?
I like that. I'd play a Saquon Barkley. And Washington is not they're playing in Washington, but still, Barkley is someone talent alone. You want to start him.
Yeah.
You think the Giants? Yeah, go ahead.
No, Michael Pittman playing against Minnesota. Is he even on your radar this week?
No, not. If you need if you need maybe a receiver, but I think there's so many other players out there that you can play with. And Michael Pittman's just disappeared, and I think part of it is just there's no offense anymore. I think they're just going to run Jonathan Taylor, but the receivers, there's nothing going on from a receiving end.
Yeah, I don't like the Indianapolis's pass game. I'll go back to Atlanta again. Drake London, man. I think Drake London's going to have a good game. They're playing New Orleans.
Now they got some draft picks. I will say they've got some draft picks for this year. And a lot of people are thinking that whoever's going to be up top and want to trade out of the second, third, or fourth spot like the Bears, the Colts are the perfect team to trade with.
Yep. Last thing, because Jen, I know you have to run for a meeting. DJ Chark, are you willing in the last couple of weeks, 14 points, 25 points? Are you willing to start a DJ Chark against a Dallas secondary?
Yeah, I would take it. I wouldn't mind taking a chance on that. Again, I think that's going to be a high scoring game. So there's going to be a lot of passing. So even if you're getting garbage time, that might be worth it.
Got it. Well, next week is Christmas time. There's 3 Saturday games. Jed, you have a meeting, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Jed, I'll see you later.